And continuing on that idea, those ideas, I started looking inspiration in many different things in order to get signals that could be interesting and useful for generative music, using different approaches. And I also have like Wincooks, which it follows, it's inspired on a different machine. And I also have Fagen, which is like I also have a hardware version that I'm developing that also generates these signals, but they are different. They have the different properties. For example, like Fagen has the characteristic that when it's dialed in some points, you get like repetitive patterns. If you move it a little bit, then you get like parts that are repetitive and other parts that are not, and then in other places they are random. And the distribution of that signal it's different as well. And the composition that you will get out of it is also different. It has its own taste.
The fascinating idea behind this is, let's say, the relation between real world and our sound works, or works with music. The models come from real world goings on, and then it's translated into audible, into some kind of audibility. When I read about code, was it some time ago, I at once remembered an experiment I did long ago. I wanted to generate a random rhythm by the audible goings on of a whole day. So I recorded with tape. It's really some decades ago. Recorded with tape, 24 hours on tape, and always when the peak level jumped up, it was a beat of a rhythm. And so I had and something like that. Okay. Anyway. Do you follow a certain path when you develop your modules, new modules, or is it just getting an idea, getting inspired by what you are working on, and then that might be a nice idea for a new module, or is it a certain path you are following?
It is usually I'm looking for so I'm trying to learn new things as well. And it depends on the module. For example, when I develop a new oscillator or a new filter, it is more clear. I want to learn this thing. I make like a prototype or something, and if I like it, I just make the module. Those are more straightforward. In the case of one of the latest modules that I developed, which is the FM operator, I wanted to learn more about FM synthesis, and I got a Yamaha DX7 too.
Yeah,
just to have like the feeling of it.
Yeah.
And I also got like these Yamaha FM chips and a stack of books to learn about FM synthesis. And once I got like a better understanding of it, I decided to make the Opulus module, which is just like a two oscillator, like two operator synth that replicates most of the workings of that Yamaha chip. But in the case of other modules, like the ones that I was talking before, like Caudal, Fagen, or Anima, those are ideas that I have, and it's like, oh, this could be an interesting way of producing, of generating signals. And I started making like a small prototype. And sometimes those ideas do not reach like a very good point. For example, like some other chaotic systems that I have tried, I have made models for them, but then I find that I really don't like the output of it, or I don't find it very useful, so I drop those ideas. And for the ones that I find useful, I kept refining them until I get something, until I take them to a point where I think that is usable.
So it's not a long-term, long-time planned product strategy. It's more, let's say, a momentary idea, and then let's try it. And if it works, you go for it, and if not, you do something else.
Yes, yes.
I see.
Yeah, but I'm constantly like looking for for new exotic signal generators that I can develop.
I see. You transfer even vintage desktop synths to Eurorack modules from time to time, I think. Yeah? For example, the Korg Monotron was one example.
Yeah, I mean the Monotron was one of the synths, a small synth that I bought when it was out and I was studying. So it was the only thing that my only synth that I had. And since then, I was making a lot of tweaks to it. And when I started with Eurorack, I say like I'm going to make an adapter for it, and also as a learning exercise.
I see.
And I transfer it to Eurorack. But lately, I haven't tried to do any more conversions of vintage synths. What I do a lot is like breadboard prototypes or a strip board. When I need something to test, for example, the other day I was thinking how will it be like the filter of the ARP? How does the filter of the ARP synthesizer works? I mean, how it sounds. And I just made a breadboard prototype to play with it. And sometimes I don't. They stay like that. I don't go forward.
I have to say I'm very respectful to breadboard prototyping because of one experience. I think 2 or 3 years ago, I made only a short circuit, just like it's a hobby. I'm not a studied electronic guy or something like that. Some basic knowledge, perhaps a little bit more basic, but it's hobby. And I developed a small circuit on a breadboard, and everything worked. And then I transferred it to PCB, and nothing worked. And until now, I have not found the difference between the breadboard and the PCB. I don't know.
Yeah, that happens. I mean, I've been doing electronics for a long time. It still happens to me.
Yeah. Okay. All right. You have a day job which is quite different from all the things we have been talking about so far.
Yes.
How does this work together?
I mean, just to explain to the people that doesn't know, I work at Wolfram Research, and specifically in a group where we develop a simulator. It is called System Modular. It's a kind of generic simulator, and like part of my studies were I was focused on mathematical modeling of electrical circuits. But I also like a lot the simulation techniques.
Yeah.
And because of that, it was how I got started into modeling like these filters, oscillators, etc. Because I was developing a tool like a simulator, a very nice simulator, and I wanted to see how the simulation performs. I mean, before, when I instead of making a prototype, when I wanted to know how something works, I will make a simulation. And I was using my, the simulator that we were developing. So at this point, is the simulator that I developed. It is like the most important tool that I use for all my work because everything goes through there. all the ideas that I have, I simulate them with System Modeler.
Mm-hmm.
And even when it's a kind of different thing, it's very different from audio work. It is the most important tool that I use nowadays.
Mm-hmm. I see. Would it be possible to make, your opinion, to make a living just from developing modules?
Probably yes, and well, it also depends where, because as you mentioned before, most of the modules that I have for VCV Rack, they are free, and I have like packs of modules, paid modules, which for me I consider them like donation, forced donations.
Sure.
And also I have modules for Voltage Modular. And if I would live still in Mexico, the donations that I receive are good enough for a modest living.
Happy for you, great, at least.
And also with the hardware, I think it's, I mean, if I add up the money that I earn from the hardware plus the donations from the software, I think it will be a modest living in Mexico. And but I would say that if I wanted to really dedicate to do exclusively audio software, I will have to change a lot of things. So probably less free things, more complicated things. Yeah.
Let's say somebody is an aspiring coder or programmer, a guy interested in working with sounds, not only music, but also sound and timbre and things like that. Would you be able to give this let's say young guy, let's say 3, 4, or 5 basic tips how to begin?
Yes. Let me think, because from my point of view, probably is I'm not sure if I'm going to be able of giving good advice, because the way I see the things is that I started doing audio already having a PhD in electronics.
Sure.
So it is for me on having that good basis, mathematical basis, and understanding electronics simplifies a lot the things for me in order to understand like some of the, like most of the concepts. But if I assume that if it will be me when I was younger, I think that nowadays the best way to start will be doing. Well, I actually don't know how. It's kind of difficult to
Sure, yeah,
give good advice.
Oh, let me put it like that. It's not advice in the meaning of, hey, you must do this. It's just your opinion. Let's say your children come and say, we want to become DSP coders. We want to develop modules. What shall we do? Okay, I have understood your first device is get good at mathematics.
Yes, yeah, that will be the first one. Get good fundamentals, because that will simplify a lot of things. Like DSP, when I was at the university, I had these DSP courses, and definitely and I could see that some of my colleagues that did not have the good mathematical basis, it was much more complicated to them.
Yeah, sure.
But even if you don't know the DSP, all the math behind signal processing, you can still do a lot of interesting things. For example, let's say that that you are interested in making a synthesizer.
Yeah. Okay.
And let's take both scenarios: a software synthesizer and a hardware synthesizer. If you want to make a software synthesizer, probably you don't need to know everything about your filters or your oscillators, but you can still make you can still build it. Probably like checking code from other persons, and like take an existing filter design, and then what is left is to experiment with your architecture, and you don't need good fundamentals for that. Probably the less you know, the better, because you can experiment more.
I see. Yeah.
And it is the same about a hardware synthesizer. You don't need to know everything in order to design it from the ground. Early, you can start building small modules like with Eurorack. You get if you get like different kits and you assemble them, you will learn a lot, and you can create something bigger, and probably you will be able of taking those pieces and build something. But if you have the basis, it will be much easier.
Sure. Yeah, the last one. The last what you said is this MOOC workstat system. That's very interesting, by the way. But sorry, I have interrupted you.
No, it is experimentation. The more you experiment with things that interest you, the more that you're going to learn.
Sure.
And it is still my case. I don't know everything about synthesizers. I still feel that there are a lot of things to learn. And when I get hooked with something, I start learning it, and then I can develop my own ideas based on the learnings.
Yeah. That will never end with synthesizers. I have to say, well, I'm quite old. Don't tell you how old, you would not believe it. When the first synthesizers arrived in the world, I was already making music. And I have always been working with synthesizers, but still perhaps not every week, but every month I learned something new about synthesizers. You will never stop learning about synthesizers.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah. So what are you actually working on, and what is the next thing we can be looking forward to?
In the short term, I want to finish these modules that I showed you before.
Sure.
The caudal,
yeah.
anima, which I have these modules that I have all done all the design work. The code itself is almost done, but here comes the most difficult part, which is writing manuals.
Yeah, oh yes. yeah. I can imagine.
And those are like the short-term things that I have. And I've been struggling a lot on making new modules like the Freak, because of the semiconductor shortage.
Yeah, sure.
It is very hard to buy them, buy the integrated circuits, and if they are possible to buy, they are very expensive. So I'm creating small batches of this one. Hopefully soon. Even when I know that it's not going to be soon. Hopefully it soon gets better.
Yeah, sure.
And yeah, that's the first thing that I have. And in the software, I have a lot of ideas still, and I have partially done some of those ideas. I have a collaboration with the Pierre, which is the person behind the geodesics modules in VCV Rack. And we are working on new modules. But I have been very busy with the hardware that I haven't made too much progress. But we have already the list of modules that I have to work.
Sounds very promising.
And I also have improvements to some of my existing modules that I want to make. For example, I have this module Incubus VCV Rack, which is a synthesizer, and there are a few features that I have been wanting to add, and also like redesign some of the existing parts in order to make it more flexible. And I'm working on that as well.
Yeah. Okay. So, what shall I wish? A better supply with circuits and a lot more time to work on the software.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And also big part of my problem with developing these things is since it is a learning exercise for me, and I want to do everything from the scratch. And that also takes me a long time.
Do you have a certain system of self-organization? That's often another big problem with creative people like you.
No, I don't think that I have any. I tend to work to jump from one thing to other.
I see.
Until I hit like a block. Then I switch to the next thing, and I'm trying to move everything forward. Like so, it's just I'm just trying to keep a good balance on the things that I have going on, the things that I want to experiment with, and things that I need to finish because it is taking too long.
Yeah.
For example, the latest model that I released, Opulus, the FM operator. When I lay out the things that I needed to do, it was just too ambitious, and I had to start cutting out things, cutting out features, until I reach a point where I say like I'm going to release it this weekend. There is no so cut out all the features that are not going to make it for an initial release. Finish it, and yeah, that's what I did. And what I'm thinking is I need to relax a little bit, like get out, like relieve my mind from that module, and later when I start enjoying it again, I will add some of those features or new.
Okay. Well, is there something you want to tell or a message you want to send to our community or even to the broader public later on?
Probably what I mentioned before, that is that keep experimenting.
Yes. Okay. All right. So, Leonardo, I thank you a lot. Really inspiring and refreshing talk, I think. I wish you to have a great weekend with a lot of experiments and a lot of nice ideas.
Thank you very much.
Yeah,
it was also very nice to talk with you.
Yeah, and I hope it was not the last one. I'll come through again later.
No problem.
Okay, see you. Enjoy your weekend and try to find some time for relaxing and having a beer.
Yes.
Okay.
Bye.
Goodbye.